James 5 verses 7 and 8 says, "Be patient therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waits for the precious fruit of the earth, and has long patience for it, until he receives the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draws nigh." Now, there's an expression, "Hurry up and give me patience, God." Like God doesn't just like automatically give you this patience like all of a sudden out of nowhere. He develops it. He builds it in you, and he builds it through experience. Patience is learned when you're forced to wait. And yes, some people have an easier time with it than others, but ultimately God is always working many things in us at any given time. He's always trying to teach us and build us in some way. But one thing he's pretty much always doing is teaching us patience. Now, there are things that God does do just in an instant, in a moment. He'll do it right away or overnight. Joseph went from a prison to second in command to Pharaoh overnight. Or you look at Jonah, that God grew that plant overnight to give him shade. There are things that God does instantly. He can heal in an instant, and so on and so forth. But there are many things, though, that he does put you through a process, because patience and learning patience, that's where you are refined. That's where you are matured and you gain wisdom and understanding and insight. That's where you're strengthened and sharpened. And if he just gave you everything just in an instant, then you wouldn't learn those things. And God's more concerned with your character than you're aware of. He wants to develop you. He wants to mature you and strengthen and sharpen you. He wants you to be wise. He wants you to learn the value of patience. And I know it's hard. Sometimes you're waiting on things that are really important, but trust God. He always does it. It may not be as fast as you want, but it will be quicker than you expect, typically. It might seem like it'll never come. It will. But you just got to wait on him. You got to wait on him. God wants you patient. And that's one of the things in 1 Corinthians 13 when it describes love. That famous passage, love is patient, love is kind, and so on. The first thing love is patient. So if you have a problem with patience, you're going to have a problem with love. You're not going to be able to love people properly. You're not going to love God properly if you have a problem with patience, and we have to learn that. You have to submit yourself to the process and learn. And as much as you fight it and resist it, you're only delaying it and making it harder for yourself. So you got to learn that. And how are we going to properly love people and show them God's love if we have a problem with patience, right? How are we going to demonstrate our faith and trust in God if we're impatient? Because if you're impatient, you're going to run off and solve things yourself instead of letting him do it for you. So I want to encourage you guys, be patient. Just like James 5 says, a farmer waits patiently for his crop to grow, mature, and ripen. That can take months. And even if you're growing a vineyard or an orchard, that can take years to develop those trees and vines properly. You need to be patient. There's a process, and God designed nature and life like this for a reason. There is a process. Let him develop you. Let him teach you and refine you and strengthen you. Again, let him teach you and just make you, he gives you understanding and insight and appreciation for things that you would totally miss out on if he just, in a snap of his fingers, made it happen right away. So again, he can and does do things suddenly. God, I'm not against that at all. I'm all for it. But also, don't fight against patience. Be patient. Whatever it is that you're waiting on, whatever the promise is, whatever God's put on your heart, whatever he's teaching you and building you in, whatever he's calling you to, all those things, just be patient. Be patient. You'll see his hand. You'll look back and say, wow, God, you taught me and you built me and strengthened me. Because you might not feel like that right now. You might feel like I'm wasting my time and nothing's happening. I don't feel like I'm changing. When you look back at it all, you'll see the difference. And the more you submit to the process and posture yourself properly towards God, the more of a development and change he's going to work in your life. The only thing that really limits God in our lives is ourselves. It's our will. It's just like that boy in John 6 when he gave Jesus his lunch. When Jesus fed the multitudes. The disciples, they were like, oh God, there's thousands of people here. We can't possibly feed them. And Jesus took the little boy's lunch. And he took that one boy was willing to share what little he had, and God multiplied it to feed thousands. And if you want God to do something in your life, you just got to give him what you have, however insignificant or insufficient it might seem to you. You give it to God and let him do something with it. And the more you posture yourself to God, the more willing you are when he puts you through this process of refinement and patience and all this, the more of a change you're going to see in your life. So I just want to encourage you guys in that. Anyways, thank you for watching. I pray this is a blessing to you in some way. Please check down below. We've got a fundraiser. If you can check that out and share it, we'd really appreciate that. And God bless.